Today I'm going to be working on a 2014 GMC Acadia.
The truth.
Alright, so this morning we're going to be changing out the water pump on the Acadia. I noticed it was leaking when I was doing the brakes on the Acadia not too long ago. And yeah, figured today's a good day to go ahead and take care of that. So, first things first, let's go ahead and get that hood open. So because I'm going to be jacking up the front of this car, I'm going to go ahead and set the parking brake just so it doesn't roll anywhere. And I'm also going to be putting a wheel chock in place as well, just to make sure the car doesn't roll anywhere. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jack up the front of the car and get it on some jack stands. Alright, now that we got it on jack stand, we're going to go ahead and do the other side as well. Now once we're safely on jack stands, we're going to start taking off this wheel so we can have easy access to the water pump that's on the backside right under here. And we're going to start draining the coolant out from underneath as well. Just make sure you got your reservoir cap open already. Alright, so I was up underneath the radiator here, and I was looking for a nice drain valve to use, but I don't see one, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to loosen the clamp on the lower radiator hose down here, and yeah, drain it into a bucket underneath, and yeah, just deal with that. I was hoping for something nice and easy I could just open up, but unfortunately I don't see one on this vehicle. Alright, so this is the lower radiator hose, and that's the clamp holding it on. I'm just going to get a pair of pliers in there, squeeze it, move the clamp, and then we should be able to wiggle that hose enough that coolant should start pouring out into our bucket. Alright, well that was not fun. And I don't know how well you could see any of that, but I was able to get up there with a couple different pairs of pliers, crimp onto that thing, and scoot it up. It's just past this bar right here. But yeah, I had to like run my one hand this way and have the pliers on the other hand. See, there's the clamp right there. But yeah, I had to scoot it up while I was squeezing it with the clamp or with the pliers and to get it up out of the way. But now that it is out of the way, I'm going to get up underneath here with like a pick. If I can find it. Get up underneath here with a pick and just kind of break it loose and let the coolant just start flushing itself out. Alright, I'm just going to let mine dribble out for a while. I could let it loose, but it's going to cause a big old mess. So instead of that, I'm just going to let it dribble for a while I work on other stuff. So I'm going to take the engine cover off. I'm going to take this big plastic piece off. I'm also going to remove this cap right here. We're going to need it to fill. I've got a bottle that kind of sits on top of here and it's just going to burp out through the system. But I'm going to take it off for now. I'm just going to kind of leave it loose. That way we get better airflow, not just with the reservoir cap open. We also have the actual radiator cap open. Alright, to access the water pump right behind here, you got to take out this wheel well. So you got a bunch of body panel clips all the way around and a few of these little screws running on this side and along the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and take all those out and get this wheel liner out. Alright, so I've got my light up top, but if you look up this way, I've got my ratchet on my tensioner pulley already, but right over here is our water pump. And you can kind of see where it's been running down the side of the engine over here. So pretty much just our gasket has failed and it's leaking out. But with our belt still on, I'm going to take off these 4 bolts holding the pulley itself on. I'm not going to take them all the way out. I just want to break them loose because the tension of the belt is going to keep that thing from spinning. So we should be able to crack all 4 of those loose. Then we can loosen up our tension with the tensioner and then take the belt off, and then we should be able to take that whole pulley off, and it'll give us a lot more room to work with. So as you can tell, where the water pump's at, where the frame is at, there's not a whole lot of room. There's only a couple inches to work with. So I'm going to try and make as much room as I can by getting that pulley off of the water pump itself. So yeah, let's go ahead and take these 4 bolts off, or at least loosen them up, excuse me, before we take the tension off with the belt. Alright, now with all 4 of those loose, I'm going to go ahead and use my tensioner bar and take the belt off. I'm going to be pushing my pry bar that way, and once the belt is loose enough on that tensioner pulley, I'm going to slip it off and get it pretty much dangling just on a couple pulleys, just pretty much out of the way of the water pump itself. Alright, now with the belt loose, we can go ahead and take these 4 bolts out and then get this pulley off of here. Come on. Now you come off there. Alright, let me play with it a bit, and this guy should come right off. Alright, once your lower radiator hose is done dripping, just go ahead and scoot it back on the pipe and tighten your hose clamp back up, just so when we go to refill it, you don't forget, and it'll be tight already. Alright, so there are 6 bolts all the way around this water pump. I'll show you here in just a second on the new one, but we're going to take all 6 of those off, and they're all 10 millimeter. Let's go look at the new one so we can see the positions that they're in. Alright, so looking at our new one, you can see the 6 bolt holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 that we're going to be taking off. So whenever we figure out the orientation of this, they're just pretty much all around the outside. Be sure to have a bucket ready, because when all these bolts get loose, there may still be some coolant in the system. I've only got 3 bolts out so far, and it already started dripping down. So it's good to have your bucket ready. Alright, these top 2 are very hard to see, but you can sort of see them up here. They're right on top of that water pump, but it's going to be easier to get them from down below. But you're just going to kind of fishing blind to get those last 2. Alright, so that very top bolt that I showed you guys just a second ago was a real pain in the butt to get to. I ended up having to use a 1/4 inch drive with a deep weld extension. just to be able to get to it. My regular 3/8 drive was too long, and all my shallow sockets were too shallow to get up in here. I tried my ratcheting wrench. I couldn't get it to ratchet at all. So I ended up sticking my head up through here where my flashlight's at to be able to see where I'm putting the ratchet, and then was able to get it off. But now that all of them are off, we can, oop, there it goes, get this water pump out of here. And let me set this ratchet down so I can actually maneuver the water pump out of this little area. Looks like I'm gonna have to come back this way a bit. Maybe, there it goes. There it goes, come on. Almost, there she goes. So I was just looking at this one. You can kind of see down between the pulley area here and the housing. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's kind of wet down in there. Yeah, all along there too. So that's where it was coming out at. Because when it was dripping, obviously it's coming out of this area, but it shouldn't have been getting near the pulley here. So that's from just residual of it leaking. There's pretty much, there's a gasket down inside here, and if it just starts to go out, the shaft that runs through here just starts to leak. Alright, so the gasket did not stick to our water pump here, so that means it's still on the engine side, so we're going to have to clean that up before we put the new one on. But let's go double check that all of our bolt holes and everything are the same with this one and our new one, and we can start cleaning up that gasket area. Alright, it's a really quick side-by-side, just to make sure holes line up where they should go. Everything looks pretty good. Looks like this AC Delco one's just a bit beefier on some of these areas, but not by a whole lot. This is the part number for the AC Delco, and it's got the GM part number on there as well if you want to pick up one of these. I do like this one because it did come with a gasket and new bolts to mount this thing up with. So we're definitely going to be using those. I don't know how well you guys can see it. Let me see if I can zoom in a bit. But there isn't much left of a gasket up there. Still going to use my scraper and clean it up best I can before we get the new gasket and the water pump up in here. Alright, so I got the surface pretty cleaned up, but I was looking at the paperwork, and there is a tightening sequence when it comes to putting on this new water pump. We got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it's going to be 1 up top, that really hard one to get to, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're going to tighten them. And they tighten down to 89 inch-pounds. So not a whole lot. Pretty much just hand tight. Get them snug is about 89 inch-pounds. But if you got an inch-pound torque wrench, use one of those. If not, just get them good and snug. You don't want to over-tighten them because you will break them and then you can have a really bad day. But yeah, go with 89 inch-pounds. Now we're going to take our gasket and we're going to match it up to the back side. Just like that. And what I like to do is I like to take my 1 bolt and I'll put it in the top hole, which is going to be this guy right up here. And that way it holds the gasket in place as we're setting it onto the motor itself. Alright, so I got my top one in. So once we get it up in the car, we're going to make sure that this sticks through, our gasket's in place, and then we're going to hand tight that little guy, hand tight all the rest, and then go through our torque sequence. Alright, my mistake, I actually had it in the wrong hole. That's why I like to double check. This one's the top. The bottom's got the little weep hole down here, if it'll focus. This big opening right down here. That's the weep hole for whenever that gasket starts to go out. Let's see how it shows the big weep hole on our schematic as well. So, that one's going to be our top one. Really hard to get to. Hated doing it, but that's that one. And again, we're just going to make sure the gasket stays on there. Now in the past, I've used this gasket maker kind of material. Just pretty much goop it on. It did not call for it in the instructions, so I'm not going to do it. But I am going to keep a close eye on any kind of leaks coming from this water pump. If I have to take it off, obviously I'll take it off, and then I'll throw some gasket maker on there just to seal it up even better. But if it's not designed for it, I don't suggest using it, because if you use too much, it'll get inside here, get in the impellers, and just cause a bad day for your whole cooling system. Same way the old one came out, we're going to stick this one back in. Pretty much run it up the side of the pulleys here, and then up into place. And again, we're going to get that first bolt started. And I've got my gasket on here as well. So hopefully everything stays in place while I get it up in there. I wish I could show you guys, but I definitely know I need 2 hands for this. I'll show you once the water pump's in place and that one bolt is tight though. Or at least hand tight. Alright, so I got the top bolt holding it in place. The gasket is behind there. So I'm going to go ahead and start the other 5 bolts by hand. Just get them all good and hand tight before I start going through and torquing them down. Alright, remember we're going to be starting with this top one right up here. And that way you can see it right there where my socket's at. We're going to be tightening down that one first. Hopefully my socket doesn't fall off as I'm trying to do this, because it is hard to get to. Alright, after all 6 are tightened in the sequence I showed you on the paper a minute ago, we can go ahead and put our pulley back on and tighten those 4 bolts down. They are also 89 inch-pounds. Now before you put this guy in, just know that it's these 4 bolt holes right here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, that you're going to be using to mount up to that water pump. Alright, so getting this pulley back on the water pump was a real pain in my butt. It was a lot of fumbling around, not being able to tell where the hole is, and just kind of getting lucky and getting it in. But once you got one in, it's easy to get the other 3 in there, and I'm just hand tightening them for now. I'm going to put this belt back on after they're all hand tight. And then that way it holds tension on there so I can torque them down one at a time. But yeah, now they're all hand tight. Let's get this belt wrapped around and on all the pulleys all over again. When you go to get slack on the belt, you're going to push your tensioner pulley this way, and it's going to give you slack to run it all over all the pulleys, and then release the tension, and then we'll be able to take this breaker bar off. If you need help with how the belt was routed, I made this little thing up last time I changed the belt. It kind of helps you out. That way you make sure you get it going the right way on everything. This blank went up here with the water pump we were just working on. Alright, now that we got our belt routed the way it should, we're going to go ahead and tighten up those 4 bolts that go onto the pulley. You can't really see it with this camera angle, but that go onto the front of the pulley for the water pump. We're going to tighten those up.
Is it K?
I don't need you anymore. You better walk out of that door. I don't need you anymore. You better walk out of that door.
Alright, once those 4 are good and tight, we can go ahead and start adding coolant. Now I'm going to be putting my coolant bottle right on here, and then I'll top off my reservoir once I'm done. But I'm going to fill it up through here first. All right, so my jug was concentrate, so now I did a jug of water as well. Just wanted to check to see I'm not getting any leaks from my water pump. Let's look back up in here. I don't see anything dripping down currently. Oh, that's a little wet from before, but nothing's like currently dripping, so that's a good sign. All right, I'm gonna run it for a bit. I'm also gonna fill up the reservoir with what's left of this water from the concentrate, and then we're gonna run it. We're gonna let it, the thermostat's open, it's gonna bubble up through there, make sure we keep our level up enough, and yeah, after that should be good to go. While I'm inside, I'm also going to turn on the defroster and crank the heat all the way up. That way it goes through the heater core as well. Now, our cars typically get up to about 210 degrees before the thermostat opens.
I don't need you anymore. You better walk out of bed. I don't need you anymore. You better walk out of bed.
Now you saw my clear water starting to mix and turn a little bit orange. It was the thermostat opening up and allowing the coolant to flow through. A lot of bubbles came through as well, and it just started mixing just a little bit more. So that's a good sign. I've shut the car back off. I plugged this. I can't take this off right now because the engine's 210 degrees. So I gotta wait for it to cool down to remove this. But in the meantime, I can put things back together. I'm going to put the wheel guard back on the inside. I'm going to put the wheel back on. I'm going to lower this thing back down to the ground. I can't put the engine trim back on yet, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lower it down to the ground and wait for this to cool off. Now remember, I'm putting this wheel guard back in place. It's got a bunch of those little push pin clips and then a handful of the little screws that run along the edge here. All right, now that we got our wheel liner back in, let's go ahead and get our wheel on real quick. If you're like me and used to wheel chock, don't forget to take it out.
Approximately 10 hours later.
All right, the engine's cooled off enough. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this. I do have my plug in, so whenever I take this top part off, it's not gonna go spilling everywhere like that. All right, now we can go ahead and take this little guy off and put our black cap back on. We're gonna make sure this thing's good and tight. All right, now I can put this back on the car as well. Get it all closed up. Make sure you put in all your little push pins too. They go all around this thing. If you guys have any questions or comments about changing out the water pump on the Acadia, put them down in the comment section below and I'll try and answer them as soon as I can. But I hope this video helped. If you liked any of the background music that was in this video, check out the Arted's SoundCloud. Link is in the description.